Welcome to the SWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. And we're here with our guest host, Sergey Kalnish, and he's going to tell us a little bit, but he comes to us from a background, a very varied background where it starts with like basketball and sales and a little bit of coding and recruiting and things like that. And we'll probably get into a bit on like mental health and meditation and mindfulness and things like that too. So, first of all, if you can start off, Sergey, by telling us a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of go back in time and ask a little bit about of you as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Luki. And so right now, my main role is I'm a talent attraction manager at a Series C Canadian startup called Jobber. We're basically a system of record for small home services businesses. Think of like plumbers, electricians, heating and cooling, landscaping, right? And I do talent attraction. So I'm basically responsible for working with our product development teams and recruiting, attracting, and screening, interviewing, and sort of managing the process of how we hire our software engineers, our product managers, product designers. I don't do that as much anymore. Our team has grown quite a bit, but I'm mostly now focusing on the product engineering group and just making sure we have the people that we need in order to build the company that we want to build. It's pretty ambitious.
Cool. Well, I'd love to rewind a little bit and go back in time in terms of like, what was Sergey like as a kid? So growing up, what are some of the early memories that you had? What was he like growing up? And then kind of going along the journey from then until now.
Sure. Wow. So I was born in the old Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union, 1984. Okay. So I spent, which would now the town I was born in is part of Russia. And I only lived there for like the first 4 years of my life. My family moved over to Bulgaria, which is in Eastern Europe, still during this sort of communist, type of era before the Berlin Wall, fell and everything. And I grew up in Bulgaria, which is a small country in Eastern Europe, kind of like between Serbia and Greece, and sort of in that area, and a pretty poor country. And the early 90s were my family was into computer. Like my dad was a sort of an early early time computer scientist in a way. Like he was studying automation and those working with the early computers that were like huge, took up a room or something like that, and used like tapes, magnetic tapes, and all those types of things. Yeah. So I kind of had a bit of a technology, like I had an interest in technology early on. I remember one of my earliest memories is like watching The Terminator, like with one of my best friends. I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and we were like under the table, kind of scared. But there was also something that I felt like really just interested in, this whole concept of like the future and technology and robots, and so that kind of stayed with me for a while, right around until I discovered basketball, which is it was a big influence on my life, and especially so I started. I saw Michael Jordan play like in a highlight thing, and just kind of like he made it look so effortless. And I just at the time I was playing soccer or something, and I remember just taking my soccer ball and I went outside to like the closest basketball hoop that I could find, and I just started like trying to imitate what he was doing. But I discovered very quick that it was extremely hard. Right. But he made it look so easy. With just, to a kid, I was like 9 maybe at the time. It really seems like magic, right? That somebody can do these things, right? And I think that's another big part of me, is that there's this competitiveness, this sort of interest in learning and developing and sort of learning a skill. So I just started every day going to that playground and just like shooting around by myself, just trying to figure out and sort of mimic everything I was seeing. So that led to sort of a pretty serious relationship with basketball, if you will. Like I played played like at the club level in Bulgaria. Like I played a little bit of semi-professionally at the age of maybe like 16, 17. And I was at that age, like you're dreaming about impossible things. So I was dreaming about playing in the NBA, right? Like that was really my sort of goal. But I wasn't as I was also like I really liked video games. Like right around the time that I became like sort of more maturing, like 15, 16, kind of come back into that world of technology, because like video games were so incredible at that time that you could really like, it was like a different world. And the internet had just come out in 94, 95, was like becoming more prevalent. We had a computer at home, we could connect to the internet. And probably a very defining moment for me was when I first like connected to the NBA.com website from like my home computer, a little room. And I just remember typing, like, because by then I was like, it was like maybe I was 12 or something, 13. It was maybe 90, 95, 96.
And you're still in Bulgaria at this time.
I'm still in Bulgaria. The modem is dialing like, like those noises that it used to make, like, da-da-da-da. It took like 5 minutes to connect. And I type in NBA.com. And by then I was just fascinated with everything to do with basketball, the NBA, America, that culture, like, the everything that went with it. And I remember the web page started slowly downloading, just like, it was literally like rendering, like line by line. And that I can't really describe. It was like the experience was like it's something magical, because it's like, like I'm all of a sudden in this completely different world, that seemed like that was so far away, but now it's like right on my computer. So I actually built my first website. I was 13, and it was a sort of a dedicated to Michael Jordan, and I put like pictures and videos and highlights, and like wrote stories about like how he's inspired me to play basketball and all those things. And so basketball was really like it for me until I went to the States. Ironically, I got to live out my dream in a way, and I got a scholarship to go play in university. So full scholarship. So my parents like didn't have to worry about anything. But when I got there, it's like you realize. I remember I got to the gym. And it was maybe a week or two before classes were to start. And I mean, this is without even knowing, I ended up on like the preseason #1 ranked school in the country in the NAIA. Not like what some people don't realize about the US and basketball is that there's there's different levels, right? Like there's NCAA Division I, which is like March Madness. So NAIA is the National Athletic Intercollegiate Association. It's less known. It's like small private schools, but surprisingly, they get a lot of great basketball talent, because the rules are different than the NCAA, and sometimes players get in trouble. So on our team, we had, I think, 3 or 4 like NCAA Division I transfers, right, that had played at that level. So when I walked into that gym in the summer, and it was just like some of the players had come to start, kind of getting ready for the preseason, and they were just playing a pickup game. And I just remember getting in, and it was just so fast, so athletic. Like it was way beyond like anything that I had experienced, I think I kind of knew deep down, even though obviously I stayed with it, and I fought to get to the highest level I could, but I just, at that point, I knew probably I wasn't going to be making my living as a basketball player. I probably wasn't going to the NBA.
So it's kind of that big fish in a small pond type of thing, and now you're a big fish in a big pond type of thing. So you realize that the caliber is totally different.
Yeah, I was the smallest. I mean, I wasn't the best basketball player back home either, but I was just crafty, and I used my. I played more smart than I was like physically gifted, or I wasn't very fast. I could shoot pretty well, but I played well. I was the guy that set the screens and dove for the ball, and kind of like a Dennis Rodman, but without the athleticism. So it's really not I was a great teammate. I was always like there to. I was always like keeping everybody together. I was cheering everybody on. I would give the spark play, and sometimes I'd have really really good games. Like I did have. Was pretty talented. I just couldn't quite put it together. Didn't have that type of mentality and focus that I think it takes to be a professional athlete. Like you just have to be completely dedicated to that craft. My attention was all over the place, right? I was interested in business. I was interested in marketing. I was reading everything. I was, probably the first thing, if I could go back, like in the context of this this podcast and the topic, is that I remember a teacher in high school coming up to me and my mom after like my like kind of like almost like a high school graduation, and she came up and she told my mom, she was like, because we had computer science and this was the computer science teacher. We had it in my high school. It was a pretty advanced high school for that time, and she said, he shouldn't be wasting his time with basketball. Like you talk to him to get into computer science. And she had actually worked in the same institute that my dad was working in. Like they really knew that technology was going to be the future, right? That computers were going to be the future. And at that time we were learning like Pascal, and we were learning like low level programming languages in high school, like at the age of like 15. This is, like in basically, just a few years after the Soviet Union, collapsed. So it was pretty advanced for its time, but I kind of never, I chose to go in the direction of pursuing my passion, my dream. And that took me to the States. That got me my education, and really started me on I think that the journey sort of in this sales, business, entrepreneurship world. So after I graduated, right, from like the age of 21 or 22 till just recently, that span that's been a wild ride.
And how did you make that decision? So you were recruited into basketball and everyone's like flying around you and you're not able to keep up. And then when was that moment that said, you know what, I have another path and I'm going to choose, as you said, sales or something.
Yeah.
What was that decision? What was that decision like?
Yeah, I fought it for quite some time. I kept pushing, and I transferred to another school, like a community college, and I played there, and then I was able to get another 4-year scholarship to like a NCAA Division II school. So like I was still kind of fighting for it, but that is really the school. So that's the school that I graduated from. It's called Northwood University. It's in Michigan, just maybe like a 5.5-hour drive from here, from Toronto. And Northwood University, like a small business school, maybe 2,000 students, but very, very rooted in this philosophy of free enterprise, right? And, free markets and entrepreneurship, right? And all those things. And those are things that I also, probably a very important thing just to mention really quickly, is that my dad, after becoming after the years of computer science and the Soviet Union collapsing and everything, he basically became an entrepreneur. He got into like starting different businesses, and that is also a big influence on me. That was right around the time I was a teenager as well. So when I got to this university at Northwood, it just all clicked, like in terms of like business, entrepreneurship. And this university, Northwood, is very entrepreneurial. It started by, or in many the DeVos family that started Amway, and they're sort of contributors. So that they're it's quite a unique, I think, educational institution in the sense that everything was focused on practical experience, right? Yeah. So if we were learning about, so I was studying in a program was called ESPM, Entertainment, Sports, and Promotions Management, like pretty niche space. And that's when I started thinking, okay, I can combine my passion with sports with my passion for sort of business and entrepreneurship. And that program and that school allowed us to really get hands-on, right? So for example, when we were learning about promotions, right, like promoting events, we would actually the university would put events together, and we would all participate in the ticket sales and the sponsorships. We would go out and talk to the community to get, community support. And, yeah, like we basically, like, it was a very practical way of learning whatever it is you were learning. For the sports side of things, we got the chance to like go and work at the NCAA Sweet 16 and the Final Four, like an
Cool.
experience, like the business side of sports, that's when I think I kind of knew that, oh, like this world is way bigger than basketball, and I
Right.
have the same type of, I'm probably better equipped to be successful in that world, because it's also something that I kind of have a lot of passion for. So that's when it switched for me at Northwood. I was right around 21, 22, and starting to get involved in these events. And it's just like, I remember that the one event where it was a music festival, and I did the most out of everybody in terms of sales, ticket sales. Like
Yeah.
I loved going into like a restaurant or a local, shop, and just talking to the owners and telling them about this event, and be like, this is so you're supporting our university and our community. And
Right.
I sold a lot of tickets. And this is one that, like, you get that validation, right? That, oh, like, I'm good at this, right? Like, and people sort of recognize you for it. And I think that's something that everybody really needs at that time,
Yeah.
when they're trying to figure out. And those are the signs that I would say to look for people. Try to think of the times that you felt like you were really, like, you felt really good about something you did, right? Like you were recognized for something you did by somebody else. Like, those are probably cues that that there's something there, right? Like
Right.
there's something there that you could explore.
Yeah, those times when it kind of lights you up and like, wow, there was something here. So you continued on from basketball, and now in the business world, sales and stuff like that, and you've had a bunch of years doing that, and then you switched into like recruiting, and then started your own startups and things like that. So how does that
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah, before I get there, there's one more left or right moment that I think is super super important for people that are after university, like after they graduate, maybe get that first job. Or I had an internship opportunity with Comcast in Philadelphia, which
Okay.
was and it was part of there were Philadelphia 76ers, right? The NBA and the NHL franchise. And I drove across from Michigan to Philadelphia with my best friend to go to the interview. And like it's a long story, but I did really well at the interview. Like, just the fact that I drove from Michigan, like when I told them that, they were so impressed. I was like, I want this job. This is what I
Right.
want to do. And it included all my passions, right? Sports, basketball, and business. I did really well. I got back, never heard from them again
Hmm.
for months. And I thought, oh, like they picked somebody else, and I started, okay, I graduated from the university. This was going to be my internship that transitioned me into like a full-time job. And now I have nothing. And I started applying everywhere. And at the time, like, you were only allowed as a foreign student to stay in the country for 1 year. Like,
Okay.
you have it's called an optional practical training that you can work for 1 year. And it was 2007, 2008, like right around that financial, crisis. And it was just like, I couldn't get a job,
Mhm.
and I ended up getting a job with the Bertrand Expo Center, which is like a local, like an events facility, right? Like something like the Toronto Metro Convention Center. And in August, a few months after I'd started, I got an email from Comcast, and it said basically, hey, like, so the person that interviewed you actually they left shortly after, but they left like a note here that basically this internship is like for you, like it's you were the top candidate, and we want to offer it to you. And by then, I had already started in this expo center. I was on paper the sales and marketing manager, but I was doing everything. Like, I was cleaning the floors, setting up events, like running the vending, sorry, the concession stands. And I didn't take that internship, and
Mhm.
and that is one of those decisions where I think, stuff I wish I knew earlier. I would have pursued that, because that would have set me up on a very different, not that I regret the career I've had, but um, so sometimes I think going with your intuition, if you feel like, okay, but at the time, like, the decision I made was not based on like a career choices or anything. It was more based on like I was dating somebody at the time, and it was
Sure.
I didn't want to go away for that long. And I think that's another thing to think about is you'll have to make those decisions. So anyhow, fast forward to recruiting.
Yeah, sure.
You're asking about. Yeah, so I got into recruiting by fluke. Like I didn't really even know that the industry existed. I was doing sales. I was working in sales, and when I first came to Canada, I already had some sales experience, and I kept going into it. Like the first job I got was in SaaS, like sales, software as a service, early
Right.
days, like 2010, 2011. There's a small company called Point Streak Sports Technologies, and very, very interesting. It kind of again merged technology and business, and I did sales for a few years, like that in different industries, and never really felt like I belonged in sales. And that's another thing, like always to think about. If something doesn't quite feel right, like it's probably like you should listen to that. And
Right.
I have to say I didn't. I just kind of kept. I was being stubborn. I was being, trying to be competitive and whatnot, and just kept saying, okay, like maybe it didn't quite work in this company. Maybe it'll work in this company. In terms of sales. And then I just realized that it's not who I am. It doesn't fit, with my strengths. And I was working in one of those sales jobs for a company called UniFirst, and I, about a year into it, I was doing okay, but I was just really not happy. Like it wasn't a good environment, it wasn't a good culture, and I was just really not. That was not something that I was passionate about or
Right.
really interested in building a career in. And I got an email from a recruiter from this recruiting agency that they were hiring for sales people, right? Business development for their finance and accounting recruiting practice.
Okay.
And maybe about 5 minutes into the conversation, like the recruiter that I was speaking with, and this is the real benefit of a good recruiter, she said, "Hey, like, you will be such a better fit for our technology division. Like this finance and accounting, this is not really. I think you'll be a much better fit in the technology division." So I went in there. I met with the VP, and and it's interesting. He really like painted this picture of the recruiting industry as it really appealed to me. He painted it in terms of, he quickly kind of figured out that I'm into basketball and sports. And so he made it sort of pitched it to me as it's like you're a sports agent almost, right? And you're
Sure.
like all these companies, and you're kind of like these software engineers and technical talent, they're very in demand. So, and it was so interesting. Like I didn't even know this industry existed. And he got me really fired up about it, and I went in, and I was there for 3.5 years. That was the first time that I actually felt like, oh wow, like this is something I can see building a career in. It just really hit a lot of the things that I was passionate about. It was technology, it was people, it was business. Like I was getting, I was sitting and talking to like VPs of engineering and CTOs at these startups that were building up and getting funded, and it was all this really exciting innovation happening, and I knew, like, I was just like, okay, this is where I need to be, like something here, something with this. And that's been, and I've been in the industry now for the past 8 years. So this was 2013 when I got in, and yeah, it's going to be 8 years this summer.
And talk to us a little bit about the, I guess the other directional shift to starting your own company. So you've been previously working for all these companies before, and then you decide to go off on your own for a little bit. So what was that journey adventure like?
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is just something I'm very passionate about. I've done it before. It's interesting. I'm what you can call a serial entrepreneur, but not in the cool way that people talk about it, where like they imagine somebody that's has is just a multimillionaire, has like. No, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started a lot of businesses, and they've all there was always, one thing that I always had is whatever job I had, like even from the first job I took when I was in university, I always looked at the ways that things could be improved. Like that's just how my mind works. Like I would constantly like see everything that could be improved, and I would have a lot of ideas. And I remember when I was in university, I was like putting together, like Facebook has just kind of came out 2005, 6, and I was putting together like a Facebook for athletes, basically to help connect athletes from Europe and overseas to like American colleges and universities. And now that's a huge business. And I ended up doing that for a while, and I did end up working with and connecting and like getting scholarship for some players from Bulgaria and like Russia. And it's always just been something that I've had in me. I think it's just part of my dad, my upbringing, and some of that experience I had. So in 2016, I was at that agency, it's called Atlantic, and I had a great run. I was there for 3.5 years, and I was now the manager of recruitment services. But really, I was just kind of doing the same job. I was just, I had a lot more experience at it. I had good clients that I was working with. Like I knew how the business works, and it's an industry and a business where you can make a lot of money. But I remember looking at like in our office, like next to a couple of desks down was one of our like vice presidents of the finance and accounting division, which is much more mature. They been around for like 30 years, and this was like our top performer. Like this was the person that's like everybody looks at when we're in my position to say like, this is like the golden standard, this is where I can be. And I just remember thinking like, that's not where I want to be. Like, that's not where I want to be. That's not, like that wasn't me. I started getting interested in recruiting, and pretty quick, like within like 6 months to 8 months, I started working also like on the recruiting side. I was brought in to do sales, but I saw like I wanted to try that, and I wanted to grow and learn. And then after a while, I just felt like there was so much inefficiency in the way the recruiting industry operates, that sort of agency model. Like I was looking at the fact that, we work on so many client jobs, and because we worked on contingency a lot of the time, we only got paid for about 30% of the, or so of the work that we did. So yeah, I just knew there was something better out there. We were working with a lot of startups, so I'm like, technology is like changing everything, and I just thought like now is the time. So I wanted to go out and try it on my own, in this industry. And my wife, now my girlfriend at the time, she was very supportive. I remember she was like, yeah, like, you have nothing to lose. And I made the decision, and I resigned and started SmartHire like the next day. November 8th, 2016. And next week I was on a flight to Israel with one of my best friends was getting married. And I just remember feeling like that freedom and that excitement of like, it's on my terms now, like I'm going to do things, the way, and sort of in a naive way, thinking that is, entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people get sucked into that. They think that it's just, you're going to have all this, you're going to travel, and you're going to have all this free time, and you're going to do all these things, and you're just going to work on a beach for the rest of your life. Maybe some people can do that. That certainly was part of the appeal. I did also very much believe that there was solutions in the recruiting space that could be introduced that could drastically improve the experience for the candidates and the hiring managers, and eliminate a lot of the friction. So we started working on that, and I got into at first I did consulting. I basically went and joined like a small agency where basically I kind of was given the reins to try different things. So I tried running like a recruitment processing, a process outsourcing, like outsourcing recruiting we had a team in the Philippines. And then it was the first time I hired somebody, and I was training another recruiter, and kind of like doing some of the things that I couldn't quite get to do at the previous company, because like it was a much bigger company, and I really didn't have that that freedom. And then I enrolled into an early stage startup accelerator called Founder Institute here in Toronto. It's a Silicon Valley program that runs in I think over 150 countries in the world, and early stage startup accelerator. And I met Sunil Sharma there, who's sort of a he's a director of tech, managing director of Techstars now, and he's such a and the Founder Institute as well is like the whole philosophy there is that entrepreneurship can change the world for the better. And I just fell right into my lane. Sort of, it was like all these people that were trying to change the world and just so idealistic and believe that technology can solve all problems, or so many of our problems. And that was, the last 5 years really of, well, 4.5 years before I joined Jobber. I was in that bubble. I was building that startup, and I got some funding, borrowed some money for the business, like just, started building software without really knowing anything about building software. I didn't have the knowledge really. I was making all the mistakes, on the go, and it didn't work out, not surprisingly. It didn't work out. We burned through a lot of money in a short period of time, and really didn't have at the end a working product. We had a lot of excitement and a lot of sort of early signs of, like, we did a lot of experiments that basically showed the concept working, but we could never build a product that we could actually go in and market. And the recovery from that was, and that was right before I got married, so 2018. So now we're starting to get into the wedding, and anybody that's gotten married and had a wedding in anywhere in and around the GTA, it's expensive even for a smaller group, and it's stressful. And right at, like, it was like months before the wedding, and I just remember, I had just, like, we pulled the plug on the software because it's just like there was no more money, right? Like I had run out of everything, right? Because like the wedding and all the everything was basically maxed out, and yeah, I needed to pivot, so I started going back into recruiting, right? What I know, and reaching out to old contacts, and just like, hey, like, and I started working, just as a recruiter, and sort of working for myself. And then that led to a partnership for the next 2 years, where I was working with a recruiting agency here in Toronto, and also across Canada, and sort of back into the traditional agency model. But we also did a lot of innovative things there. Like we experimented and ran a project with machine learning, and saw a lot of great traction there, and also got involved in global hiring, through the Global Stream program. So just like the last 6 years have really been like the most accelerated learning I could possibly imagine in terms of the recruiting, craft. And now the last 7 months at Jobber, it's like putting it all together, because now you are in that position, like that position that I could never get to, right? As a early stage founder, like we're there where, we have a product that, customers are using, and it's growing, and, it's incredible. It's really been, I honestly, like sometimes I don't have even the ability at the time to look back and like take it all in, because it all happened so fast, Yeah. Like the last 6 years have just been a blink of an eye.
And sounds amazing. It sounds like the first few chapters of the book, and you have plenty more to go. So we'll probably be eager to hear about what else is on the horizon. But I'd love if we kind of closed off with some of your SWIKE. So we'll probably come back and do a more deeper dive into things like the whole recruiting process, what's wrong, what could be changed improve, something on entrepreneurship and startups. There's a whole bunch of things I'm sure we can talk about there. And then before we're chatting also about things like mental health. So I don't know if you want to spend a little time on that, and then trying to share some of the SWIKE that you have for yourself there.
Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, that is something very important. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and just with everything that's been going on with the pandemic, it's actually pushed me to be a lot more outspoken and open about sort of just my experience with mental health. You know, and I don't view it as a negative. I think there's a lot of stigma attached to it, so I try to talk about it more. But you know, I've struggled with depression and anxiety for over 10 years now, really all the way going back to probably those days that I came to university in the States. Those were some of the early signs, but I didn't really get into understanding what it was and until I came to Canada in 2011. And that started a long journey that sort of just now I'm getting to the other end of where I'm comfortable enough talking about. And I also know that I've learned a lot that could be helpful, you know, to other people. And some of the things are, I tell everybody the very best thing I ever did for my mental health was discovering meditation.
Right.
Really, it is probably the most powerful, tool that I've discovered. And the beauty of it is you have it with you. You don't need an app, really. I mean, there's a lot of apps that are helpful, and I'm happy to do a deeper dive into that and talk about some of the ones that I've had experience with. But really, all you need is just your breath and a little bit of time to dedicate to that. So I would really just, in terms of SWIKEs, I would say learn self-care practices as early as possible in your career, as early as you can. Really, I wish meditation was taught in high school, because I think I think the most important thing, the biggest lesson that I've learned or I can pass on to anybody else is like knowing yourself is really the most powerful thing you can have, and you can apply that to your career. Like I think in many ways we are like a lot of people when they come out of university and they spend so much time and money and so much expectations on pursuing whatever it is their chosen field is, whether it be finance or business or I don't whatever it may be, right? Computer science. The more like I would focus on dedicating some time to getting to know yourself, right? To learn self-care practices, to learn about nutrition, to learn how important food is and rest, and learn what it is that you're all about outside of work. Because I think the longer my career goes on, the more I understand that there's so much more to us than just what we do, for a living. And I think the more you can align your career with those things that you are deeply passionate about, like in my case right now, I'm pinching myself almost on a daily basis because it's like I love getting to know people and learning about technology, and I get to do that every day. Like on the worst day, there'll be somebody I talk to and they'll tell me something, I'll learn something that's just like incredible. So the faster you can align those things, and I think people are so focused on the school they're going to go to, the classes they're going to take, the jobs they're going to take, the all this stuff. They're so busy there, and they lose track of learning who they are and what are they all about and what they're passionate about, and kind of getting in tune with that. Because I think the most lucky people I think are the ones that align early on, like the Kobe Bryants. And they often, like some of those people talk about it very often, how early on they just knew that this was what they wanted to do, that there was no doubt in their mind. So meditation would be an incredible ally to anyone, I think. And I am an advocate for it because I've done a lot of different things to try to improve my mental health. I've read all about it. I've talked to a lot of professionals and, tried a lot of different treatments and medications, but meditation has been the most powerful tool, and it's completely free. It's completely accessible to anyone, anywhere, right this moment. It's very, very powerful. So I'm happy to dive into that more, but I just wanted to. But the other thing I'll say is, as well, as mental health is very complicated, and just because this worked for me, and this is not the only thing. Like there's a number of tools in the mental health toolkit, sort of that I've learned. I focus on meditation because I just think there's really no negative. I think it's beneficial for anyone to get to know. So thanks for letting me talk about that a little bit.
No, I would definitely echo that, where starting off with knowing yourself, I think is definitely an important part, where I say that people are often on that conveyor belt of life where they kind of go through school, thump, and then next graduation, thump, and then keep on going. But really, they don't do it because they want to. They're doing it because mom and dad expects them, culture expects them, whatever it is, expect them to do it. But they don't actually take the time of, well, what is my thing? And it makes sense because in our parents and our grandparents' generation, they didn't really have the choice. They didn't have things like the internet or basically all these kind of remote learning and anything. Like now you can pretty much reach out and access anyone, right? You have that ability with a little bit of persistence, obviously, and a little bit of care. But starting with that knowing yourself, and then that whole mental wellness, I would love to continue on the conversation, because I think it's one of those things where it's not even like depression or anxiety. It's being human, right? We all experience on one spectrum or another, right? Some of it are more severe, and then it's kind of ebbs and flows. And I like to equate it to kind of like the seasons, where for some people they're in winter, right? And it's a deep, dark, depressing winter. But spring will come and summer will come, and then you'll cycle back. And the goal is to make winter as short as possible, right? And summer or spring or whatever season you like the most as long as possible, and finding those tools to do it. And I would echo that. Like meditation is definitely one of those things that kind of almost universally helps, and we'll definitely get into that. But I'd love to bring you back for future episodes. And where can folks connect with you? If is it probably on LinkedIn or email, or is there another way for folks to reach out and connect?
LinkedIn is great because that's where I am most of the time, as my job is very much like reaching out and connecting with people, and mostly in the tech space. So yeah, LinkedIn, Sergey Kalnish. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. That's where I'm more, just sort of me and my personal opinions and on many different topics that I enjoy. Sergey Kalnish there, I think, also. These are great ways, through LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, and I would definitely recommend anyone. I mean, that's I think in terms of career development, and if you're early on in your career, invest in your LinkedIn profile. Right. It is right now the most powerful recruiting tool there is, and it's also just very powerful for connecting with people from all walks of life. You can definitely find me there.
Perfect. So thanks, Sergey, for joining us, and we're looking forward to having you back in a future episode.
Really appreciate it, Luki. Thank you so much, and best of luck to everyone.
Take care.
All the best. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.